Why have human beings in every age and every culture been drawn to music, dance, storytelling and imagery, and artistic expression? Why is it that we create? And furthermore, what does the impulse reveal about who we are? Thank you so much, and I'm overcome with an immense sense of gratitude to be before you today. And before I begin my remarks, I'd like to thank Vice President Osgothorpe's office, Carolee Sanders. They do a remarkable job in putting this together, and I would also like to express my devotion and care for my amazing wife, who is not only my eternal companion, but my eternal ballroom dance companion as well, and I wouldn't be here without her. Nearly a year ago, I was outside doing yard work when I noticed the mailman stopped in front of our house and placed a stack of mail in the mailbox. After finishing the lawn and putting the mower away, I walked down the driveway, opened the mailbox, and began sorting through what appeared to be the usual assortment of advertisements, flyers, and junk mail. But one envelope immediately caught my attention. The return address said, Office of the President, Brigham Young University. As you can imagine, this is not a typical occurrence, so naturally my curiosity and perhaps my blood pressure rose just a little. I walked back into the house, sat down, opened the envelope, and as you can see from the photograph on the screen, I didn't take great care or dignity when I opened it. I tore into it rather aggressively. As I unfolded the letter, I noticed President Shane Reese's signature at the bottom of the page, just to confirm. And then I quickly returned to the beginning and started reading more carefully. I read the opening paragraph once, furrowed my brow, then I stopped. I read it again. Convinced I'd somehow skipped an important sentence, I went back to the beginning and read it a third time. I lowered the letter, sat there staring at it. I was completely caught off guard and honestly a little bewildered. After a long pause, the thoughtful, articulate one-word response came out. What? My wife, who was nearby, responded with a, what? I think I've just been awarded the Carl G. Mazur Distinguished Lecturer Award, I said. And she replied with what I think was a perfectly reasonable spousal response. Well, isn't that a good thing? I said, no. I don't think you understand. The Carl G. Mazur Distinguished Lecturer Award is usually given to people who find cures for cancer, not people who teach the cha-cha. In all seriousness, this is truly a remarkable honor and one for which I'm incredibly grateful. Over the years, this award has been given to BYU's most distinguished scholars, teachers, and thinkers, individuals whose contributions have shaped their disciplines, advanced human understanding, and enriched the life of the university. Never once did I imagine that I would be among them. As I reflected on that reality, I found myself considering what it meant that a university like BYU would choose to honor someone from the arts in this way. At a time when many institutions of higher education face increasing pressure to justify programs through measurable outcomes and immediate utility, BYU continues to invest in artistic education and creative expression. The new music building and soon-to-be completed arts building stand as visible reminders of that commitment. Within those walls, thousands of students sing, dance, perform, compose, design, write, create, and imagine. Those buildings represent more than construction projects. They represent a belief that education is more than preparing students for a profession. It's also about helping them become fully developed human beings. That commitment raises a question that I've spent much of my professional life considering. Why do the arts matter? For many years, I thought they mattered because of what they produced. However, over time, I have come to believe they matter even more because of what they produce within us. Which raises an interesting question. Why have human beings in every age and every culture been drawn to music, dance, storytelling and imagery, and artistic expression? Why is it that we create? And furthermore, what does the impulse reveal about who we are? To begin answering these questions, it's worth noting something remarkable. The act of creation has always been part of the human experience. Long before there were universities, governments, or corporations, or modern economies, there were stories, images painted on cave walls, dance, music, and rituals that helped people make sense of their world. Many things we associate with civilization emerged gradually and unevenly, yet artistic experience seems to accompany human beings wherever they go. I often think about our own pioneer heritage. The saints who entered the Salt Lake Valley had endured an exhausting journey. They had crossed the plains, left homes and communities, buried loved ones, and along the way, they arrived in an unfamiliar desert, seeking a place where they could finally build a life in peace. When they reached the valley, enormous practical challenges stood before them. They needed homes, roads, irrigation systems, schools, businesses, places of worship. There was certainly no shortage of urgent work to be done. And yet, Brigham Young also insisted on music, drama, dance, and a theatrical performance. In fact, in 1853, only a few years after arriving in the valley, they built the Social Hall. This was a gathering place dedicated to music, drama, dancing, and cultural life. And it might be interesting to note that later the Salt Lake Theater would become one of the most celebrated theaters in the American West. That decision is revealing. The pioneers understood that human flourishing requires more than survival. Even while building a civilization, they made room for beauty, creativity, celebration, and expression. The arts are not a luxury that civilizations pursue after everything else is finished. They help us celebrate, mourn, worship, remember, and hope along the way. In many ways, that legacy remains visible today. Ours is a faith that sings. We gather in chapels around the world and raise our voices together. We tell stories, create music, stage performances, write, paint, and build. Even as we focus on doctrine, service, and discipleship, artistic expression continues to shape how we worship, remember, and belong. Artistic expression is not merely something we do, it's part of who we are. As Elder Dieter F. Uchtdorf once observed, the desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. If artistic expression is so deeply woven into the human experience, what is it that the arts actually do? What gives certain songs, paintings, poems, and performances the power to stay with us long after facts and figures have faded? How do they express things that words alone often struggle to convey? To explore these questions, it may be helpful to begin with something that we often take for granted: language. We often think of language as primary means of understanding the world, and certainly language is powerful. After all, universities are built upon it. We explain ideas, analyze evidence, define concepts, and debate conclusions. Language is one of humanity's greatest tools. Yet there are some experiences that explanation alone never seem to capture completely. Most of us have experienced something like this. You're driving in your car, minding your own business, when a song comes on the radio. My wife often says, "Oh, take me back. You haven't heard this song in years." For me, it might be ABBA's Dancing Queen. Within a few notes, I am no longer sitting in my car. I'm at 7th grade school dance. I can remember even how the gymnasium smelled. The paper was taped over the windows to darken the room. The scratch of a record beginning to play. Ask your mom and dad what that might mean. The friends, the excitement, and perhaps a few dance moves that are left better in 7th grade. The song does more than remind me of a memory. It allows me to experience it again. Isn't it remarkable a simple melody can do that? The arts have a remarkable capacity to engage parts of us that facts and information alone cannot reach. They help us remember, perceive, understand, and communicate in ways that extend beyond information alone. A painting can help us notice beauty that we had previously overlooked. A poem can give language to feeling we have struggled to express. And a dance can communicate emotion and meaning without speaking a single words. The arts do not simply communicate information, they communicate meaning. For many of us, some of life's most meaningful experiences are among the most difficult to describe. Love, grief, awe, reverence, sacred moments. We often struggle to find words equal to what we have felt. Perhaps this is one reason that the arts have long occupied such an important place in our religious life. They help us express and illuminate truths that often seem to reach beyond ordinary language. Those of us in the Latter-day Saint tradition understand this intuitively. Many of us have sat through a sacrament meeting where a musical number communicated something that a sermon alone could not. We have felt truths confirmed, not merely through explanation, but through an experience that touched both mind and heart. In moments like these, the arts can become a vehicle through which the Spirit touches, inspires, comforts, and testifies. 20th century philosopher Hans-Georg Gadamer, one of the most influential thinkers on art and interpretation, suggested that a work of art finds its true being when it becomes an experience that changes the person who encounters that. That's a compelling idea. The greatest works of art do more than present something beautiful to observe. They invite us to see differently, feel differently, and ultimately become different. They don't replace language, they extend it, allowing us to experience aspects of life that often lie beyond the reach of explanation. I was reminded of this during the inauguration of President Shane Reese some 3 years ago. Many of us had the opportunity to witness a remarkable artistic moment right here in the Marriott Center, as student singers and musicians from the School of Music came together under the direction of Professor Andrew Crane to perform the beloved hymn, "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." I could spend several minutes describing this inspiring performance. I could talk about the size of the ensembles, the looks of the faces of the students, the quality of the musicians, or the structure of the music itself. But none of those explanations would fully communicate what happened in this arena on that day. Allow me to share just a brief excerpt of that moment. See what I mean? Even just seeing that brings back the feeling that I felt. And not to change the essence of the feeling that we're experiencing right now, but it made me believe, for those that were in the building, that at any moment, it's like the City of Enoch, we were going to just rise and the roof would come off. It was truly, truly remarkable. A video can't capture it, but those who were in person understand this. What happened in that moment was more than a musical performance. It became a shared experience. It invited thousands of people to feel something together. Experiences like that remind us that some truths are not merely understood, they're felt. Allow me to share a recent experience from my work here at BYU. Just over a year ago, the BYU Ballroom Dance Company began preparing to compete at the famed British Championships in Blackpool, England, the most prestigious ballroom dance competition in the world. For BYU, the event carries special significance. You see, in 1971, BYU became the first American team to ever win the British Formation Championships. This marked the beginning of a remarkable 5-decade relationship with one of the most prestigious events in ballroom dance. The competition itself is a powerful experience. It provides a goal that focuses effort, demands excellence. Students spend months pursuing a standard that often feels just beyond their reach. They rehearse early in the morning and sometimes late into the evening and return day after day with the shared hope of creating something truly exceptional. The approaching competition creates a sense of urgency. Every rehearsal makes a difference, every detail. The students learn to work together under pressure, solve problems, adapt to setbacks, and persevere. Through disappointment, they discover meaningful achievement rarely comes quickly and almost never comes easily. Over the course of the year, we revise, refine, begin again. Process is often slower than they would like, and breakthroughs are often harder won than they expect. And somewhere in the process, something else begins to happen. The work starts to shape the people doing it. The students become more disciplined, more resilient, more capable of trusting one another, and contributing to something larger than themselves. Those qualities may ultimately prove more enduring than any score, ranking, or trophy. I've come to believe that the deepest value of experiences like these lies in who we become along the way. The video you're about to see captures some of the rehearsals, challenges, and triumphs that accompanied our preparation for Blackpool. But if you watch closely, you'll see something else as well.
Every time we come to BYU, the students inspire us.
Ready? Does that give us that moment? And then go to that corner. This is worth the time we're spending.
Quality that I respect a lot and admire a lot, they actually have such a strong feeling of team.
There is nowhere else in the world I could find the same amount of dedication, love for the ballroom dance.
But they are willing to do extra time, extra hours, because there is a big goal in front of them as a team.
The creative process is extensive.
So your 10 seconds is our 10 hours.
It's only readable when you see one group.
What can this team do when we push each other to our limits?
I think what truly makes a champion is that one-of-a-kind determination. Talent is overrated, and the preparation is everything.
It's a little bit humbling because you recognize that it's not just what you do that matters, it's what your entire team is doing that matters. It is such a blessing to be able to do this with people that I love and for people that I love.
And it's his first place. Brigham Young University,
As I watch that, video now, I find myself noticing something very different. from what occupied my attention during the year. At that time, I was focused on the choreography, the music, the countless technical details, helping the students become the best required to bring this work to life. Today, I find myself paying far more attention to the students. Certainly, the dancing improved. That was expected. But it was not the only thing changing. Over time, a collection of talented individuals became a team. Trust deepened, problem solving became collaborative. Setbacks that once felt discouraging became challenges they learned to navigate together. The competition eventually came and went. The applause faded almost as quickly as it had arrived. At BYU, we often speak about the importance of becoming. For nearly a year, we thought we were creating a performance, but somewhere along the way, we were in the process of creating us. But the story's not over yet. About halfway through the year, we received an invitation from the Asia Area Presidency to travel to India immediately following the championships. The trip would include 3 full-length performances and a variety of service opportunities in Delhi and Bengaluru, India. At the time, we were very excited, but our attention remained focused and fixed on Blackpool, rehearsals, preparation, competition. Only later did I begin to understand how closely those two experiences were connected. 1 week after the championships, we got on a plane, left England, and flew to India. Just 1 week separated 2 remarkably different stages. The elegant floor of the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool, England, and a dusty schoolyard courtyard in India where nearly 1,200 kids sat cross-legged in the dirt. In Blackpool, the audience surrounded the dancers dressed in formal tuxedos and evening gowns. In India, the audience sat shoulder to shoulder on the ground, watching with the same excitement and anticipation. The contrast could not have been greater, yet the two experiences were not opposites. In many ways, they were connected. You see, the opportunity to travel to India existed because these students had devoted themselves to excellence. And now that same pursuit was creating something entirely different. As I watched the children respond, I found myself reflecting on the purpose of artistic excellence. It matters because it inspires, it opens doors, it creates opportunities that might not otherwise exist. But one of the highest purposes of excellence is not to simply impress, but to connect. What mattered the most in that schoolyard on that day was not the complexity of the choreography or the precision of the technique. It was shared joy, the excitements in the faces of the children, the realization that people separated by language, culture, geography, and circumstance could nevertheless understand one another through movement, music, and human expression. We arrived believing we had something to offer, but we left knowing that we'd received just as much. In that schoolyard, I was reminded once again of the power of the arts. They do more than help us create, they help us connect. And as I think about these stories that we've considered today, I'm struck by how different they appear on the surface. A hymn performed in a university arena, a group of students preparing for an international competition, a schoolyard filled with children halfway around the world. At a glance, they seem to have little in common, but yet each revealed something important about the arts. The music of President Reese's inauguration reminded us that some truths are felt before they're understood. The journey to Blackpool demonstrated that the creative process often shapes people engaged in it as much as it shapes the work itself. And finally, the experience in India revealed that artistic excellence finds some of its highest purpose when it becomes a meaning of connecting people to one another. Different settings, different circumstances, yet all point toward the same reality. The arts possess a remarkable capacity to deepen understanding, transform the lives of those who engage in the process, and strengthen human connection. Perhaps that is why the creative process feels so very familiar to all of us. It actually mirrors life itself. In creating a dance, a painting, a piece of music, a story, we recognize the same patterns of uncertainty, discovery, struggle, transformation that shape our own becoming. President Thomas S. Monson once observed this: God left the world unfinished, for men and women to work their skill upon. He left the electricity in the cloud, the oil in the earth. He left the rivers unbridged and the forests unfelled and the cities unbuilt. God gives us the challenge of raw materials, not the ease of finished things. He leaves the pictures unpainted, the music unsung, the problems unsolved, that we might know the joy and glories of creation. This insightful observation suggests that creation is not merely something we do, it appears to be woven into the very purpose of mortality. Whether we're creating a work of art, building a family, pursuing an education, serving in a calling, or striving to become better disciples of Jesus Christ, the pattern is very recognizable. We begin with the possibility, a vision of what might be. Things rarely unfold exactly as planned. There's setbacks, revisions, disappointments, unexpected turns. Progress often comes more slowly than we hope. Yet through persistence and grace, something gradually begins to emerge. Not only in what we're striving to accomplish, but within us. The arts deepen our understanding, strengthen connection, and invite us to become more than where we began. God's work has never been presented as a finished product to admire from a distance. From the beginning, men and women have been invited to participate in the ongoing work of creation. That invitation reveals something important about who we are. We are children of a creator. Across cultures and centuries, people have continued to sing, dance, tell stories, create images, and make meaning. The forms may change, but the impulse remains remarkably constant. In some deep and enduring way, these things help us understand and observe one another and our place in the world. Throughout this lecture, I have suggested some things are understood most fully through an experience. Rather than conclude with more words, I'd like to leave you with an experience. Please welcome the BYU Ballroom Dance Company.
Écoutez-moi, moi la chanteuse à demi, parlez-moi, à vos amours, à vos amis, parlez-leur de cette fille aux yeux noirs et de son rêve fou. Moi ce que je veux, c'est écrire des histoires qui arrivent jusqu'à vous. C'est tout. Voilà, 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 voilà qui je suis. Mais voilà mes messies, mes années je peur. Oui, mais voilà tout le bruit et tout le silence. Regardez-moi, oh dis-moi ce qu'il en reste. Regardez-moi avant que je me déteste. Quoi vous dire que les lèvres tenant ne vous diront pas ces petites choses, mais moi, tout ce que j'ai, je le dépose là. Voilà, 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 voilà qui je suis. Mais voilà mes messies, mes années c'est fini. C'est mes cœurs, c'est mon cri, mais vous voilà tant pis. Voilà, 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 juste ici. Mon rêve, mon vie, comme je crève, comme je ris. Mais voilà tout le bruit et tout le silence. Ne partez pas, je vous supplie, restez longtemps. Ça me sauverait pas, non. Me faire se foucher pas comment. Aimez-moi comme un ennemi qui sauva pour toujours. Je fais quand même parce que moi je sais pas, il m'aimait comme tout.